representing the Grand Traverse Band.
Good morning, Madam Chair, committee members. My name is Desmond Berry. I am representing the Grand Traverse Band of Ottawa and Chippewa Indians, sovereign tribal nation. I am the director of their Natural Resources Department. I apologize for my nervousness. I'm an employee, not an elected official, so I don't often do this. The mission statement of the Grand Traverse Band of Ottawa and Chippewa Indians, Natural Resources Department, is to protect and enhance the natural resources and environment entrusted to us by Creator for managed and respected utilization by the Anishinaabe for past, present, and future generations. We do not feel that the commercial net pen aquaculture aligns with our guiding mission due to the number of potential risks to the fishery and the environment. As such, the Grand Traverse Band of Ottawa and Chippewa Indians support House Bill 5255 in opposing commercial net pen aquaculture within the Great Lakes. Net pen aquaculture within the Great Lakes waters is not appropriate for a variety of reasons. First and foremost, the Great Lakes and their associated bottomlands are a public trust. These waters are to be managed for the long-term use and enjoyment of all people. The Great Lakes Fishery Commission has valued the Great Lakes fishery at more than $7 billion annually, while the Michigan Quality of Life agencies have valued the Great Lakes natural resources and associated tourism industry at nearly $37 billion annually. By privatizing these bottom lines for the benefit of a few, it puts the entire system at risk. Biologically, net pens allow industrial scale farming operations to be placed in the open water without any real separation between the net pens and surrounding waters. Fish feces, waste feed, disease, and parasite all pass through the net into the environment. Because of their nature, net pens hold fish at a very high concentrations, such that large amounts of fish waste are produced in a relatively small area. We do not allow feces from beef, pork, or other farms to run off into local rivers that flow into the Great Lakes. How is this different? In ocean systems, tidal changes help flush the excess nutrients away. But in the Great Lakes, excess nutrient loading is a leading cause of harmful algal blooms. Cladophora and algae found in the Great Lakes is already a nuisance for many beachgoers. In addition, Cladophora has been linked to botulism outbreaks in many fish and bird species. The Clean Water Act has worked to reduce pollutants, including excess nutrients, from entering our waters. Allowing the free flow of nutrients from commercial net pens into the Great Lakes flies directly in the face of the Clean Water Act. In addition, given the harsh environment of the Great Lakes, escapement from the net pens is highly likely. Proposed species include those which may interbreed with wild stocks, potentially reducing genetic fitness. Also, farmed non-native species could become invasive after escaping from net pen facilities. The law authorizing aquaculture would violate treaty fishing rights. The Grand Traverse Band of Ottawa and Chippewa Indians and 4 other Michigan Indian tribes possess Great Lakes fishing rights reserved under the Treaty of Washington, executed March 28, 1836. The Grand Traverse Band's off-reservation fishing rights in the Great Lakes were confirmed by federal court litigation. Subsequently, the federal courts confirmed that the Indian tribes, signatory to the 1836 treaty, retain property rights in the Great Lakes fishery resources. Any Michigan law or regulation authorizing aquaculture within the Great Lakes would be subject to challenge by the 1836 treaty tribes under the holding of paragraph 18 of the federal court's May 7, 1979 declaratory judgment and decree, which says, I'll paraphrase, because the right of the plaintiff's tribes to fish in ceded waters of the Great Lakes is protected by treaties of the Ottawa and Chippewa Indians with the United States. That right is preserved and protected under the supreme law of the land. does not depend on state law, is distinct from the rights and privileges held by non-Indians, and may not be qualified by any action of the state or its agents, nor regulated by the state or its agents, except as authorized by Congress. A Michigan law or regulation authorizing commercial net pen aquaculture in the Michigan waters of the Great Lakes would be inconsistent with the 1836 Treaty Reserved Great Lakes fishing rights declared in United States versus Michigan litigation. Fish harvested and sold from these facilities would compete for the seafood market share with those harvested by tribally licensed commercial fishers. However, it should not be necessary for the 1836 treaty tribes to challenge a law authorizing commercial net pen aquaculture. Instead, the Michigan legislature should enact House Bill 5255 prohibiting net pen aquaculture in the Michigan waters of the Great Lakes because it poses an unacceptable threat to the Great Lakes' natural resources that are of paramount concern to all the citizens of Michigan. Thank you. And I do have copies.
Okay, thank you. Representative McBroom with a question.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, sir, for coming in. I guess I was just wondering how how you distinguish the current non-native fishing that goes on in the lakes, commercial fishing, as fitting into what you just read from the treaty rights versus the commercial aquaculture. I mean, as long as it's not within treaty waters specifically, but in the Great Lakes as a whole, I guess I'm just looking for how anybody else is able to legally fish right now under your reading of that treaty.
Well, sir,
and that court decision.
Thank you. Thank you for the question, first and foremost. I don't have a legal background.
Okay,
and I'll confess, I did have assistance from our tribal attorney when drafting this. I do know, consistent with federal law and the 2000 consent decree, I don't know if you're familiar with that.
Mm-hmm, I am.
It is a shared right between the citizens of the state of Michigan as well as the citizens from the 1836 treaty tribes, and it's an equally shared right.
Right.
So, therefore, charter fishing coexists with the tribal treaty commercial fishing.
Right.
I think the state and the 5 tribes in Michigan have done a great job of working together to protect the shared resource. And it's our belief that net pen aquaculture would, in fact, devastate that resource.
Are you aware that when I talked about a pilot program in my district that was being formulated, that involved one of the tribes?
Sir, I don't even know what district you represent.
Okay,
I apologize.
Fine. Oh, that's fine. One other question, Madam Chair.
One more.
And this might...
And I would assume you're probably referring to Hannahville?
Yes.
Okay.
When you talk about the amount of fish and how this would be unsustainable or all, I guess I'm just curious whether you know, and you might not know, I don't know, are there more fish in the Great Lakes now than there were 100 or 200 years ago, or were there more fish then than there are now?
I guess I'd feel uncomfortable answering that. I do have my expert here today, though, if you'd like
Somebody
to
else might be able to answer that later, too.
Sure.
So, okay, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Any other questions? No? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.